around it and what it is and where it is, and use the operator ID that registration people will need to put on their drone. And that then enables us to reunite it with the owner.
And the world's oldest working post office has been put up for sale. Sanker Post Office in Dumfries and Galloway opened in 1712. Its current owners are retiring. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the QPR Fan Show.
Do you know what? I tell you what, with that intro music, I would love to be on this show every week. It's me, Matt Beadle, stepping in for the man that can, Charlie Hawkins, or the man that cannot this week. In fact, Charlie Hawkins, he is not here. I've stepped into his hot seat for the QPR Fan Show on Love Sport, joined as ever by the boys from Ranger Things, Gareth Dixon and Julian Monaghan.
Good evening.
How are we,
Hello.
gents?
All good. Just to let you know, the theme tune is a high point of the show, so it's all downhill from there.
I'm
and
pumped.
we've upset the producer by not doing the air drums, so
Oh, come on.
I don't know where we go now.
Crikey. All right, well, should we pack it up? Roll the ads. We're done.
Hey! So it's a second chance for QPR.
Well, gents, we are going to go straight into the weekend's action. Of course, it was a 2-0 defeat at Leeds this weekend. Hey, look, no great shakes losing at Ellen Road, especially when you've only had 4 goals in your last 10 games there.
Yeah, I know that's a bit of. We were talking about this before the show. That's a bit of a kind of bad fact, really, in the 10 games, and we even watched the classic 6-1 defeat.
You didn't say how many they've scored against us.
In that time,
yeah.
It's easy double figures after the 6-1, isn't it? But no, we didn't expect to go there and get anything from the game. And that is a bit of a defeatist attitude, really. But I think it was a little bit kind of, that was the mentality, and you go into it from the players, the fans. 2-0 was probably, we got away lightly, really. They had a lot of chances. We didn't really do much to them. We had a chance to go 1-0 after 70 minutes with Hugel's header, but everyone's like, oh well, it's a 2-0 defeat. We expected that. Let's just go away. And it's probably a little bit of a temperature check of where we are, really, in terms of going away and beating teams. We've done well this season of doing that, but it's about beating the teams that are above us and looking at progressing. And we haven't really done that, really, apart from Sheffield Wednesday, have we?
Well, I think it's disappointing because we keep hearing that we're set up to be better away from home. Our formation,
that's just me
our
saying
start.
that.
Yeah, but you're not the only one. A lot of people have said that. And so you think, having not won the previous 2 games, we'd go away with a bit of belief. Add to the fact Leeds hadn't scored more than 1 at home all season.
Well, yeah, I was going to mention this, but I'm glad you got there instead of me.
So you kind of think, well, we've been scoring a lot of goals, but we've been conceding too many. So you think if they're only going to get 1, then potentially, and we're often getting 2 in a game, there's a chance. But it did feel like we just kind of went up there and resigned very quickly. And they got their second goal, which, probably is, given they've not scored against anyone else and we've got the leakiest defence, is probably not unsurprising. But disappointing not to score any goals and only have 1 real chance in the game as well.
I think it came at a bad time of playing Brentford as well at home, and Reading, a resurgent Reading on the night as it turned out to be, although Brentford then subsequently lost to Huddersfield at home, just to mention that. But I think it was a difficult time for us. We're still chopping and changing. We had Lee Wallace making his debut. It was his first game, coming into November now, and he signed in the summer. So there's players kind of still finding their way into the team, making their debut. He's still thinking about what the best formation is, whether it's 3 at the back, whether it's 4 at the back. And I just think he's still trialling a few things out. And I don't think you can go to a place like Ellen Road, regardless of whether it's a swashbuckling Leeds United that are going to go for you, or this which seems a bit more defensive Leeds United, and expect to get a result when you're trialling things out and when you haven't got that belief. And the omens are against us, with those 4 goals in 10 visits with no clean sheet. It would have really upset the odds to go up there and get a victory on the day.
We did beat them twice last season in the cup and at home. So that's the thing that's disappointing me at the moment is, you said it a minute ago, but it's really emphasised for me. We are beating the teams we should, but we're not beating any. I'm not surprised with some of the wins. We're not suddenly turning up and beating a Leeds or beating a West Brom. If it's someone down the bottom, we're winning those, not comfortably, but we're winning them by outscoring them. but we haven't had any results yet, bar the Sheffield Wednesday one, which I think they're probably going to end up similar position to us. That we haven't gone away and threatened to beat West Brom.
We spoke about the Millwall.
No, but Millwall I still
there.
think are going to be. Yeah, of course, we haven't beaten them since 1991.
They are down the bottom compared to us.
Exactly, they are down the bottom. So we're beating those teams, and we're winning away at some of those teams that previously we might have been like, well, we never win away. It doesn't matter who it is. This season we are winning away at the poor teams. We're beating the poor teams at home, but we're not beating anybody above us.
I do think, like I said at the top of the show as well, going to Ellen Road, just 8 goals they've conceded all season, Leeds. I mean, that is just an incredible record. In 15 games, 8 goals. We have the Leeds Fan Show on this station, and they do a platform called All Stats Aren't We? And they crunched the numbers on how many they've conceded per game. And if they continue it, apparently they are looking at conceding, if they continue at this record, between 27 and 30 goals for the entire campaign, which is obviously unheard of, which would be incredible. So it's yes, they're not scoring that many goals, like you said,
Right.
but they're not conceding either.
No, but you look at a spine of the team, and up front at Bamford, I mean, he doesn't score many, but he works hard for you, and he's somebody that kind of make the ball stick up there. You know, you got Calvin Phillips in the middle, or centre mid, who's you know, if he doesn't stay at Leeds, he's going to move on to bigger and better. And they've got Ben White in at centre half as well, who's doing really well on loan from Brighton. So you look at that spine. I'm not sure about the keeper. I don't know if they've got a new keeper.
No, they sold
No, it's Kiko Casilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same keeper. So they've got a really kind of solid spine there, and them three are kind of all right. It's looking at Bamford v Nketiah, and you're thinking of Nketiah's got the goals, but what Bamford else gives to you when he's not diving around the place is quite of a solid form. You know, it's a solid spine, and you need that solid spine, and a cauldron like Ellen Road can be with the fans' expectations. I mean, it's a tough place to go, and that kind of helps them out. And it looks like they've changed tactic this year, but QPR weren't at this moment in time, after the 2 games they had, really going to challenge them, I don't think, on a day.
I'm not going to call Mark Warburton a tinkerman, because he's not, but he is tweaking things occasionally. Defence, midfield, so it was a back 3 at Leeds, right?
I think from what I've seen so far, that's the formation we've been better at when we have 3 centre-backs with the 2. Because for me, Manning is very good going forward, but he's been found out defensively on a number of occasions, and I think Brentford and Reading he was found out on a couple of those. So I've actually preferred it when he plays the 3 centre-backs. I think Leistner got pulled back in because he needed to do that, and actually he's been a bit off the last couple of games, but before that I thought he started to play well and looked like he was a linchpin at that back. So I prefer that formation personally, but he has tinkered it a bit. He's gone back to the flat 4 at the back. And the thing that really was interesting for me, because we talked about it at the beginning of the season, was how great Warburton had done in bringing all these players in and making them gel and making them play better. I was shocked when I saw the Brentford game, when the lineup came up. There was only 1 of Warburton's signings in that team. If you looked at it, I don't know if you noticed. All the other 10 were there at the club previously. Yeah, of course there are some that he signed, like Angel, and he brought
Wells and Cameron
Wells.
and yeah,
he brought those back. But of the 10 that were on the outfield, they were all players that were there last season. Kelly was the only one.
Oh, interesting.
And I suddenly said to me, God, we've been talking about how well he's gelled these players. Actually, if that was a team, and they did go on to lose, but that was a team, it actually says that he's reverting back to making the players that were there last season better. But actually the ones he's brought in haven't, and the ones in talking to the tinkering, the Amoses, the Smiths, Hugo was obviously suspended for that game, but some of those don't seem to have worked as well, or hadn't been mainstays ongoing.
And I think it's a little bit round peg square holes with the the back 3 that finished, the 3 you mentioned. Only one of them was a recognised centre half. The other was, around him was Rangel and Lee Wallace, with Manning pushed on the left and Kane on the right hand side. So we have got a bit of an issue there. Leicester went off injured. Hall has been, Mr. Glass for the last couple of seasons and has missed the last few games before Brentford and came back into a derby, which might have been too soon for him. Barbay's now kind of injured as well, so we haven't actually got loads of recognised centre halves. So we're playing 3 at the back, and we've actually only got 1 centre back. I think Lee Wallace can do a job in there, and did that. Showed that with the recovery tackle on Bamford to protect and save the goal. But we're trying to play 3 at the back without the players to do it. So I think it's the system that probably does work better for us, but we actually haven't got the defensive cover and capability. And all right, we haven't kept a clean sheet all season. I don't blame the defence ultimately for that on their own in isolation. I think it's the players in front of them to protect them that haven't given that protection as much as they should do. But I think we do actually need to address that in January. I know we were in for McKenna pre-season. I don't know how much truth was in for that for the Aberdeen lad.
We need some cover.
We need some cover. We need some first team choices.
Because I personally think Wallace would, if Wallace played well, then hopefully he goes out to left. I think Manning moves into midfield and plays the role that maybe Scowen or Cameron have been trying to do. And then you have Leistner and Barbe as well, or potentially if we bring in someone new. Because if those all three play, then you have absolutely no cover in centre-back. So, I think Manning can do a good job in that less attacking but more aggressive, because he is aggressive. I mean, he's had the odd red card doing it too, but I think he can do it. Scowen's been a bit on and off. He's had some good games and some poor games, and Cameron didn't impress me against Brentford or Reading.
No. I think Cameron and Rangel have come back to the club on backs of good seasons for us when, most players could have come in and done well, but, they are getting to the elder statesmen of their career. That, they're not fresh anymore. Rangel, I think, has done really well as at right back cover, and Kane struggled since he come to the club. But Cameron has been disappointing. Doesn't seem to be the same player he was when he was on loan from Stoke, and now he's joined permanently. It does, centre mids really kind of hurt us. It's that spine I'm talking about, that core, which we haven't been good enough, and we haven't got the quality in there sometimes to play the system that Warburton wants to play. So I think you're right, Julian, in terms of putting Manning into the centre mid spot. He's actually better on the ball than some of the others. So that's an issue for us, because it's not having the players who positionally play in these places, but also technically not having the players that can do what Warburton wants them to do.
Yeah, and you mentioned Angel Rangel there. Listen, 37 years old. You kind of wonder how much longer he can go on for. Todd Kane came on. Do you think that it's likely we'll see him take that mantle from now on? At times at the weekend, it just looked like Rangel was struggling with the pace a little bit.
He's been struggling a couple of games, but he's still, he's still got that old head on him, and he gets in last-ditch tackles when you need him. Kane has been disappointing, I think, but he's quick. And, we obviously signed him on the promise that he was going to be more attacking and could do it. The game that really shocked me was the one against West Brom, where he was
awful.
absolutely in the pocket of that left back. That guy completely destroyed him. You saw a man's confidence just drain out of his face during that game. And eventually he was crossing from the halfway line because he knew he couldn't get past it.
When he can control it, which wasn't often.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's what those players give you off the pitch on the training ground is what Warburton's brought them in to do, is to nurture the youngsters. Apparently, we talk about Mark Pugh as well, who came on and had probably his best game off the bench and gave the ball away for the second goal. So you can't do anything right when it's going wrong for you. And it's starting to be a bit scapegoated by QPR fans. But I think it's the unseen stuff, the stuff that's going on the training ground, the likes of Rangel, Cameron, and Pugh. That all right, we can criticise them for the first 11 performance, but it's what the mentoring and the kind of the guidance they're giving the younger players, I think, is pivotal actually for their development.
You mentioned the goals conceded a moment ago. Liam Kelly's obviously come in goal. Quite keen to talk about the goalkeeping situation because Joe Lumley obviously started the season. That's 6 games now for Liam Kelly in the Championship. It's 14 goals conceded in that time.
Yeah, but I haven't seen many of them that I would say are his fault. I don't think there's a lot between them. I think they both make the bit odd error. They're both not good enough with their feet, which is obviously what Warburton wants. But they've both made really good. Their shot stopping is pretty impressive. Kelly made some really good stops against Reading, a couple that kept us in it, and Brentford. So from that perspective, I think they're a bit too similar for me in terms of the way they've been playing. The difference I give Lumley is he's just a bit taller, which makes me feel a bit more confident than Kelly. Because actually, it was it Brentford or was it Reading? I can't remember which one of them had a really short goalkeeper as well. And I remember sitting there thinking, looking down
David
the file.
Raya was at Brentford.
Yeah, he was really short as well.
He was class for them, though.
So having 2 very short keepers on the pitch that game, that strikes me with Kelly. And I don't know, if you're a striker, does that give you confidence when you've got a short keeper? Whereas Lumley's tall and you'd think that he'd come for crosses. I felt unfortunate for Lumley that he got dropped, but he was making mistakes. But it was generally because he's been asked to play that game with his feet, which he wasn't good at. I assumed Kelly was going to be good at that because that's why Warburton brought him in. But I haven't noticed him be any better with his feet either. Maybe a bit.
I don't think the defence trusts Kelly yet. Kelly does have an air of mad Scotsman about him in the goalkeeping situation. I think his saves. I think he has cost us goals. He cost us the second goal at Hull in the 96th minute, which then put us under a bit of pressure. And the Puskas goal for Reading, he came out. He just seemed to be really erratic in coming. He really wants to come out, and it's like just stay in your goal and let the defenders defend in the wide areas and outside the penalty area. But he's come out, but then he's pulled off some class saves, some real kind of like without that save, that's a goal type thing, and it changed the game. The Brentford one, he saved I think 2.
Save one early on from
but
Watkins.
Raya for me, for Brentford, was exactly the sort of player we need. But that's the difference between a £3 million goalkeeper and a 50k goalkeeper. You know, that's where Brentford are shopping. That's where we're doing at the moment. And he was the only player we spent money on, Liam Kelly, and 50k. And he looks like he's got potential. He could be recalled back into the Scotland side. You know, him and Lumley, I think it's, you know, much of a muchness. Yeah. It's a coin toss, really.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? And like you say, the issue now with the modern goalkeeper is playing out from the back, playing with your feet when you've not been taught how to do that, really.
I'm not sure any of our defence has been taught how to do it. That's the problem.
Indeed, this is the QPR Fan Show on Love Sport. Next up, we're talking to Tony Thorpe.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio. Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had a look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
You're listening to the QPR Fan Show on Love Sport. Me, Matt Beadle, stepping in for 1 week only for Charlie Hawkins. Hello, Charlie, if you're listening, with the boys from Ranger Things, Gareth and Julian. Delighted to say that right now we are joined by Tony Thorpe, ex-QPR striker, of course. Tony, great to have you on the show. Just like to ask you how you think the boys are doing so far this season, and of course, your reaction to that defeat at the weekend at Leeds.
Yeah, I think I've been on the show a couple of times this year. I think QPR have had a relatively good season. I know they've not won in 3. Losing, obviously, at home to Brentford was a tough one to take. And then I think they drew 2-2 against Reading at home and then lost at the weekend. So the kind of previous to that, they were on a good, rich vein of form. So all in all, they probably are where they are. 7 or 8 points off the top's not a bad turnaround, really, and a return. So, yeah, all in all, I'd say that they're okay. But obviously they've got a decent game Saturday against Middlesbrough. They haven't won in 6. So you'd expect QPR to come away with all 3 points if they've got any aspirations of finishing in the top 6 this year.
Tony, good to speak to you again. We're probably going to talk to you about strikers as we usually do, as your former position. But thinking about goalkeepers, we've just been having a conversation around Liam Kelly and Joe Lumley. In terms of a modern goalkeeper, how important is it for them to be able to use their feet, and how much do they inspire or put the fear of death into the rest of the players if they are showing signs of lack of confidence?
Yeah, he brought Kelly in at the weekend, didn't he, against Leeds?
Well, he's played the last 6, I think, now, Kelly.
Yeah, so he has made a couple of mistakes from what I've seen. some really big ones, but obviously keepers are like players, really. They'd obviously breed on confidence, and for some reason he's not as confident at the moment as he probably would like himself to be. But yeah, going back to your original question, I think goalkeepers nowadays have to be generally very, very good on the ground, whereas 20 years ago probably wasn't as important. They've got to be good on and technically, as well as be able to kick it far, but also to start offensive attacks from the back as well. So there's a lot more demand on goalkeepers now compared to probably what there was when I played. All we wanted them to do is obviously be good shot stoppers, good in the air, and obviously kick it as far as they can down the pitch. It's changed now, football. They would expect their goalkeepers to be quite gifted in possession of the ball.
Yeah, and obviously goalkeepers make a mistake. We remember it and we criticise them. Strikers miss an open goal. We kind of forget it early on. What's your take on on Hugel at the moment? Because his stats are pretty good for the season so far, but I've been a bit disappointed by the number of misses, good opportunities that he's put over the bar, particularly. So I don't know how much you've seen of him, but I would have thought...
Yeah, bits.
Yeah,
bits. I think very similar to goalkeepers. Strikers, I've been through lean spells where you couldn't hit a barn door from 5 yards, and then everything you touch goes in. It's really strange. He's going through a bit of a spell at the moment, like you just said. He's snatching at things, they're flying over the bar. Whereas when you are confident, it just seems that everything goes in. So no different to a goalkeeper, a striker. You breed on confidence. If a goalkeeper keeps dropping it, he doesn't want the next one. He's looking at the next one to catch and solely concentrates on that. Next save, and it's very similar to a striker. You get in a really good position, you just got to concentrate on hitting the target first and foremost, and obviously that is quite important, because unfortunately the goal doesn't move, so you've got to hit the target and make the keeper work.
And thinking about the strikers we've got at the moment, Hugo and Wells, and thinking about whether they work up front, I think back in the day it was people like Quinn and Phillips, that classic big man, little man strike duo. Do you think that Hugo and Wells work as a two, or do you think that's a bit of an antiquated thing as well?
Me personally, I think they're both very mobile, and they're very, very similar in the terms of ability. I think you're right. I always played, majority of my career, I played with a big man. If you're talking at QPR, for instance, I played with Furs on the odd occasion, and Kev Gallen, although he's not the tallest, he was big and strong. You could direct a ball into him and get hold of it. Don't think, again, in football you have a big man, little man syndrome. I don't think people play that style anymore. I think it's all changed. I think people play, within the flanks, off the flanks, coming in as a 3 maybe, and then one at the top, and then one just off as a 10. So there's so many different formations that these managers play nowadays. For me personally, two strikers that complement each other, I think works better when instead of having two very, very similar.
Yeah, obviously there are two strikers at the moment. We've got this guy on loan, Malaka. I can't really say his name.
I've not seen a lot of him.
Yeah, but what's slightly disappointing is that we've brought him in. He's had a couple of games, not looked particularly good in possession, I don't think, and not really created chances. He's kind of looked a bit lost between playing right up front and a bit wide. But Otte, meanwhile, who's our youngster, come from Tottenham, but through our academy, we've got him on loan at Bradford, and he's scoring goals, getting assists. What do you think? Should we be bringing him back? Should we be playing one of our own versus, bringing someone in from Brighton and helping them get him a bit better? But it feels like, if one of Hugo or Naki gets injured, we don't really have a lot of options. And I think we saw it at Brentford when Hugo was suspended. We were a bit blunt up front.
I agree. I think you need options, and Warburton needs options up front. You want all your strikers fit, and you can, if for some reason, like we've just spoke about, somebody having a bit of a lean spell, you can change it. I think you're also right. If you do get a couple of injuries up there, you start to wonder where your goals are coming from. So having those options is imperative, really, if you are going to be... I said at the start of the season, I felt QPR would probably finish mid-table. I still stand by that because I think it's such a strong league. They have surprised me this year. just whether they can sustain that between now and the end of the season. And they will need all strikers fit, firing on all cylinders, because you are going to have dips in form.
And Tony, last time you were on, it was before the clocks went back, and it was when QPR played Luton. And at the time, it seemed like you were erring on the side of being more of a Luton Town fan. Reflections on that game, it was a 3-2 win for QPR on the day, but Luton did give us some trouble in the second half.
I think I sat on the fence, actually.
Good
you would
answer.
say
I don't think I said Luton would win. Yeah, Luton, I mean, if you're talking about QPR struggling and not hitting form at the minute, not winning in 3, Luton are going for a bit of a strange spell themselves. I did a piece for the paper a couple of weeks ago, and it's imperative that they win their home games if they're going to stay up. QPR beat them, I think, from what I heard speaking to a couple of the old boys, QPR brilliant first half, and then not so good second, and Luton maybe could have snatched something out of it. But, that's when things are going well for you. QPR were winning games quite comfortably over that spell. But it is a long season, guys, and you've got to understand, you two have watched many a game over the years, 46 games, you are where you end up, and I just think it could test them a little bit this year. I'm not sure they can finish in the top 6, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just think there's better teams out there.
Okay, Tony. Well, it is Middlesbrough this weekend, of course. Before you go, we have to push you for a prediction. How do you think the game's going to go?
Yeah, I mean, Middlesbrough are absolutely struggling at the moment. We've just said 5 minutes ago, I think Middlesbrough haven't won in 6. He's trying to find a balance to his team as well. I'm all over a QPR home win, but it's one of them ones. I think Middlesbrough will be happy again with a point, and QPR have got to force the initiative and really go out for all 3 if they're going to have aspirations of keeping with these boys at the top, because it is very tight up there. I think 30 points is West Brom, and I think QPR are 23, so there's nothing in it. It's ludicrous for us to be saying, or even me saying, that it's over or they're not going to be in the top 6. You don't know what run some of these teams are going to have. I just think that it next year will be a better year for QPR when he kind of figures out his strongest team, maybe gets an opportunity to bring 1 or 2 more in, and they've had a good solid year in the Championship. But I'm definitely going to go for a home win, I'm afraid.
Good stuff.
Good man.
Nice
Cheers,
one,
Tony.
Thanks for joining us, boss.
No worries, guys. Take care.
That was Tony Thorpe. He said, I'm going to go for a home win, I'm afraid. I'm not sure he quite meant that. Of course,
the Luton comments.
Yeah. Of course, Middlesbrough without a goal in 4, without a win in 8. We are going to be discussing that clash after this on the QPR Fan Show on Love Sport.
Love Sport.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245 and 8 pence to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search 1U.
Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
What I loved about that whole incident, don't consider apologising, just make it known that, no, actually, I'm right. We should be spying on each other.
Yeah.
And then you kind of question yourself, like, maybe he's right. We should be out there doing really bad things. I don't know.
There's some life advice there from Richard Lee. You know what? Just do it. Just whatever's going on in your head now, just do it.
Just do it. What's the worst that could happen? Take the Bielsa line. That's what I say.
Can you imagine, though, like being Leeds' press officer? Because obviously Bielsa is crackers.
Yeah.
Is he like, oh, I've got a press conference. Where is he? I don't know. And then just like at the back with the glass windows of the press centre, you just see Bielsa there with like an open dressing gown just fiddling through the weeds. Like, Bielsa, come on in. We need to do this. We've got a press conference.
It's fine. She can look after the dogs. It's fine. Leave them there. What a guy.
Weekdays from 6 a.m. This is Love Sport.
Are you throwing away your hard-earned money on expensive energy bills? Keep the price down when you turn the heating up. You could be saving hundreds by switching to a cheaper deal. A spokesman said.com compares all the best deals on the market to find you the one that saves the most cash. Find the cheapest energy tariffs for you. Go to a spokesmansaid.com and start saving today.
The Opposition View on Love Sport.
This is the QPR Fan Show on Love Sport. Me, Matt Beadle, here with the boys from Ranger Things, Gareth and Julian. It's time now to turn our attentions to that game at the weekend against Middlesbrough. Earlier on today, we spoke to Phil Spencer, Northern writer of Football League World, and put it to him that Middlesbrough are indeed unbeaten in 8 games.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one, really. I think at the start of the season, you'd probably have put Middlesbrough down as favourites for this kind of game. But the way that the season's gone for Middlesbrough, as you mentioned there, with that horrific stat, it's not going particularly well for Middlesbrough and Jonathan Woodgate. And you'd probably say that for QPR, it's been a season above expectations. So you're really going into this game at Loftus Road thinking that QPR might be favourites for it.
Yeah, sorry to start it on a low. Phil, didn't mean to bring out a dodgy stat for you straight away. I'm gonna follow it up with another one. Why not? 2 points adrift of safety. Luton are the team that are just above Middlesbrough. Of course, the two teams that met on that thrilling opening day encounter at the start of the Championship season. I mean, when that 3-3 draw finished, what were your expectations for Middlesbrough? Did you see gaps that were potentially there to be exploited for opposing teams, or did you think, crikey, this is going to be an exciting season for Borough?
It was probably more the latter. I think a lot like a lot of Middlesbrough fans, after having someone like Tony Pulis in charge last season, it was a lot different. Every game that you were going into, you knew that it was basically a banker for your less than 2.5 goals scored per game. It was just like a money making machine being able to do that. But I think going into that game with Luton, it was completely wide open. It was really entertaining. And I think when it's the first game of the season, you don't really have the kind of stresses and strains of how the season as a whole will unfold. And so you watch that game and you think, yes, there's gaps in defence, but we're scoring goals and we're getting forward. And it's quite entertaining. But in hindsight, you maybe look at it with a little bit more negativity and think, yes, we scored 3 goals against Luton, but we also conceded 3 goals against a side who've just been promoted. So maybe that might be a sign of things to come as they should come up against more difficult opposition.
I have to say, Phil, that after listening to Jonathan Woodgate after that defeat to Derby at the weekend, I don't want to say that he's resigned to the fact that he might lose his job, but he just seemed so deflated. And I know it's not easy to come out and speak to the media when you're on such a barren run, but he was just a bit like, yeah, well, we've got to try and sort it out and fix it. And then when the interviewer, in one of the interviews that I saw, said, do you back yourself? And he was, yeah, of course I do. Yeah, I back myself. Yeah, I'll turn it around. Like, it was very matter of fact, and there was no real in-depth nature to his interview.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I'm not exactly sure what the situation is with regards to him losing his job. I think Steve Gibson, he's always a manager who's willing to give time to managers, and I think with Jonathan Woodgate, I think that the main thing is to keep in perspective is a lot of the problems that are going on at the club at the moment aren't really anything to do with Jonathan Woodgate at all. It's kind of a culmination of a couple of seasons of massive overspending, and then this season having to rein it all in. So lost a number of experienced players over the course of the last 18 months or so. Obviously, you brought in a new manager such as Jonathan Woodgate, and if you look at the squad that he's got at his disposal, it's in my opinion, it's nothing more than an average Championship squad. Granted, I think they should be doing better than what they are. They certainly shouldn't be in the relegation zone, but I think with a mixture of an inexperienced squad, a little bit of naivety in some of the players, and a manager who is very much still finding his feet, I think that's where you've got the other recipe for a bit of uncertainty like you've got at the moment.
Yeah, inexperienced and threadbare somewhat as well at the moment with injuries. Of course, Rudiger Stead, Darren Randolph, they're still recovering. George Friend, of course, is out. Ryan Shotton, Ashley Fletcher, if you're looking for firepower, he's not playing. Of course, that's 4 games without a goal now for Middlesbrough. George Saville won't be playing because, listen, I can't actually believe, by the way, that was his first red card, I believe, of his competitive career. Now, George Saville, not a dirty player, but quite a Fruit Loop. I'm quite surprised he's not had a red card before.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did quite a lot of his growing up at Millwall, didn't he? So that's probably one of the reasons for learning to play the game. But no, he's a decent player. I think like you said, it is a little bit surprising. It was his first red card, but you could argue it was a little bit harsh from being sent off. But like you said, I think threadbare certainly the word going into the game against QPR.
And speaking of that game, Phil, you are Borough. Born and bred Borough. You're a Middlesbrough lad, but you have worked for a bit in London. You covered QPR, so you are technically the perfect person to speak to about this game. How do you view their season thus far? They're just a couple of points off the playoffs, of course, lost to Leeds this weekend. But how do you think they fared under Mark Warburton?
Well, they certainly fared a lot better than most people, including myself, gave them credit for. I remember doing, it's only recently that I've started covering Middlesbrough again, so I was doing a lot of previews for QPR over the summer, and I was one of the people who was backing QPR for a really hard season, possibly fighting off relegation. And yeah, Mark Warburton's just completely screwed me over with how well he's done so far this season. So he's come in, I think, with basically a brand new squad. There was such a high turnover of players over the summer that you kind of expected that it was going to take a little while to settle down. But he's got them playing with freedom. Yes, the defence is a little bit ropey at times, but that was the case last season. But the main thing that he's done is he's got some of the attacking players playing the natural game. Players like Ibira Eze, players like Elias Chair, and he's got people like Naki Wells and Jordan Hugel firing as well. And so I think what he's done is he's got the team playing to the strengths. And although results have kind of petered off a little bit in the last couple of weeks, they're certainly performing above expectations, in my opinion.
Quick score prediction before you go, Phil.
I'm going to say 2-1 QPR. I think Middlesbrough are in a really difficult patch at the moment. Yes, QPR, like I just mentioned, have struggled a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but I think the atmosphere at Loftus Road might just see home advantage take over.
This is Love Sport.
That was Phil Spencer, Northern writer of Football League World. And of course, Middlesbrough are not unbeaten in 8. They are without a win in 8. And they have not scored in the past 4 games. I correct myself, gents.
Perfect time to play us is usually what you would say next.
Well, do you know what? It's funny because the guys from Crystal Palace earlier, they said the same thing. The guys from West Ham, they said the same thing. We have a Norwich fan show on this very station, and they say the same thing. They've even got a saying for it, which is what one of their podcasts is, Along Come Norwich. And their idea is...
Ours is Charity QPR.
Is that what it is?
Charity Park Rangers.
Charity Park Rangers.
So when someone needs a record broken or they need to start something, Along Come QPR.
Oh, exactly. Well, I think it was Robert's first goal for Leeds in a year. You know, Swindon's first win in the Premier League and all that stuff.
And their first away win and home win.
Yeah.
Because they did the double on us.
Yeah. So
there's lots of records like that.
Good omens.
Good omens.
But I have to say, at this time, I don't feel, because going back to what I said before, we seem to beat the teams we should beat. I actually feel we might break our own record this time and get our first clean sheet of the season. Yeah,
you reckon so? Well, the fact that Middlesbrough aren't scoring many goals at all, so haven't scored in 4 like we just said. And Phil there, to be fair, you picked up on it. He thought that QPR might get relegated at the start of the season. I have to hold my hand up as well. I've got a lot of QPR supporting friends, and I did say at the start of the season that I really thought QPR would struggle, and actually I've been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, we have too. I think because because Warburton was unknown. He did great at Brentford, then a couple of dodgy spells. Well, I think Rangers did all right, but he reportedly, they fell out. Forest was odd, but it's an odd club. They often do this to managers. And then he brings 14 players in, and then you've got to gel them quickly. So I think we were sort of saying if we finish 16th, we'll be happy, 13th to 16th, and then we can build from there. Now I'm thinking mid-table.
It was the players we lost as well, like the likes of Freeman. We talk about the Leeds. We beat them 1-0 last year, but Freeman beat them on his own single-handedly, and you lose that creativity and that sort of player out of the team, of a pretty poor team the last 2 years, actually. People like I wasn't a Luongo fan, as people know, but losing him as well.
Wednesday, couple of goals, I think.
Good for him. But we lost a lot of quality. There's maneuvers and stuff. So it was people were pessimistic, but Warburton's done well. We said about it. 14, 15 games now, and he's done well to gel that team in that time, that amount of players.
Well, if we'd have beaten Brentford, we'd have gone second.
Yeah, but false position.
I know, false position. But we'd have gone
been
second.
Strange to be behind.
The fixture list has been kind to us, and now after Middlesbrough, we've got another tough run. What have we got? We got like Fulham away. We've got Derby.
But Fulham must have whole 3-0. This is the thing about this division. It is anybody's game. I think we will lose to Fulham anyway, because as you say, we were going to lose to good teams, better teams above us, and West London derbies were awful anyway. If you can call it a West London derby, considering I'm from South West London. But I think you're right. Middlesbrough is the perfect game at this time for us to break this little blip. And get that clean sheet, which is again to get the hoodoo off the clean sheet. It's like, we haven't got a clean sheet.
Do you remember last season Rotherham hadn't won a single away game? In fact, and then they came to us and they beat us 2-1.
Another one there. Bolton as well beat us back to back.
Well, I want to quickly touch on Jordan Hugill, because he spent some time on loan at Middlesbrough last season. Did not go well for him at all. But like you said, of course, if you look at the stats, that's 1 in 2 for him this season. He's a bit of a joke amongst West Ham fans. Let's not beat around the bush. There's the famous meme of him talking about his bubbles when he signed for the club. But he is another one, and we've spoken about the partnership with Nahki Wells quite a bit on this show tonight already, but he'll be wanting to show Middlesbrough fans what they didn't see last season.
He's a Borough fan as well, isn't he? And I think he's got the same amount of goals now, so I think he will be. I think he's an interesting guy. You mentioned the bubble stuff. He had a glaring miss. Was it in the Wigan game when he missed the open goal?
Missed from 1 yard.
He came off the bench. I think they're struggling to get Wells and Hugill in the same team, and it's something like Harry Kane levels, where you can only play Harry Kane and no one else up front, and then what do you do with the rest of the strikers? But we had this a little bit last season as well, but they were all really poor, even including Wells last year. So we didn't have the goal-scoring threat. I mean, they're easy. Wells and Hugill have scored 6-7 goals each, I think, this year. So it's a big change for us. And Malacca and Hemed, interesting, they're both from Brighton. They're almost interchangeable, but I think it's a real problem. I don't think the two of them were up their work. I don't know what the stats are when they play together. I think that when one's up there, it's more of a focal point. And I think the players behind them create chances for that focal point. They kind of get in each other's way a little bit.
I don't think they're working well together yet, but I think partnerships take time to bed. And because they've done together and then one replacing the other, I think they need a bit more time. I always prefer two strikers.
Isn't it a bit old school though? I mean, what part? I mean, is it not more?
No, but that's 4-4-2 is old school.
Nines and tens. And
well, but you can have one behind the other. You could say Eze behind one of them. But I personally find that you create more chances and you occupy the defenders more. And Hugill does do that. He has missed some sitters. Nahki is a much more accomplished finisher. And I think his movement off the ball is so much better. But I do think Hugill just occupies the defence. And I thought when we had it with Brentford, Nahki was just non-existent.
We were blunt. Yeah. We were blunt. You need he gets up your nose, Hugill. That's the thing about it, whether he means to or not. He does actually kind of like wind players up.
Yeah,
he's not a nasty player, but he's physical. He's prepared to put himself around. He does fall over too easily for me for a big striker. Like, I want my striker kind of standing there, taking the smashes from the centre-back and being that presence and going, I'm here for a battle and let's have it type thing. But, I think I can't remember which game it was. It was away from home. He was diving on the floor again. Might have been the Wednesday game. And it's like, you don't actually need to do that. Let's just, if you're going to be there as the presence, as the physical presence, do that. And I agree, like Wells is better, more sharper. His movement's better. He's probably better on the ball, but I think we've just got a bit of a conundrum up there, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be interesting to see what happens at the weekend. This is the QPR Fan Show on Love Sport. Next up, we're on the road to nowhere.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice. Premier League, Championship and fan shows, 7 days a week. we've got your team covered. Love Sport.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm from the Shropshire area and I'm a business development manager. I use a spokesman said for my car insurance where I've saved over £500 and also on travel insurance as well. So in total, me and my family have saved about £600. I would definitely use it again and I would definitely recommend it.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident. And save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England. Connecting the country.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Love Sport.
It's the QPR Fan Show on Love Sport. We've got about 9 minutes to go. So before we go, we're going to stroll down that road to nowhere. Gents, let's have a little loan update, shall we?
Yeah, we don't really know where to start here apart from Otte. Julian's furiously researching. But yeah, so we've got, I think the good thing is about where our loan players are at. We've got 2 at Wickham. Paul Smith hasn't played for a while because he's been injured. Giles Phillips as a centre-back was on the bench and they won 1-0. Wickham doing really well under Ainsworth.
Incredibly well.
I think they're kind of like exceeding all expectations. And yeah, Ainsworth will be hot property and mooted to be next QPR manager by many. And what people wanted him at Rangers, I think, ahead of Warburton, fair to say, Julian, with Ainsworth.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was he became the longest-serving manager in the Football League last week.
He did, yeah.
When
as
the
a
Morecambe
result,
chap left.
Jim Bentley, moved on.
So, you know, it doesn't feel like he's been there that long to me. And
No.
he's been mooted to be our manager for probably the last 2 turns of managers.
Well, we were watching him score at Ellen Road a minute ago in 6-1 defeats.
The problem is, I think now with Ainsworth, is that he struggled along with that side with hardly any players, with hardly any budget, a constant turnover of players because they were bringing in loans and free agents. And now Wickham have got a bit of investment. You can imagine if they manage to defy all odds and go up this season and end up in the Championship, part of me thinks, you know what, he'll want to stay to see the project through.
Yeah, you'd want it, wouldn't you, really? Because he's built that from nothing, as you say. So he'd want to see that through. But
well, I suppose the other thing is that because he was obviously talked about going to Sunderland, and there was at least one of the other jobs, Millwall, that was talked about too. And obviously those takeovers, the conversations were happening at that time. And I suppose for a manager, you probably have that view of, well, I don't know who's coming in. That insecurity, am I better securing a job at somewhere like Sunderland or Millwall, where I know I'm at least going to have a year or 2, versus somebody new coming in with big investment that may turn around and say, thanks very much, we'll go for a name. As we've seen with Mr. Fernandez in the past, you bring in name after name. And so I suppose maybe he was a bit worried about that. But hopefully you get the reassurance. Hopefully you'll be told, you know, we want you, you've done a great job, you're up near the top. And
there might be a job at Preston for him, one of his other old clubs, if Alex Neil
moves on to Stoke. Yeah, although I'm not even sure if I can see that happening there.
Top of the league to the bottom.
Exactly.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
No.
I was going to say, just touch on Otte. We didn't finish with that goal and assist on Saturday. I mean, this is a player who, I mean, would you like to maybe see him back at the club?
I thought he was I think he was a top under 23 goal scorer in the country last year, which doesn't really tell you too much, but you know he's got to score goals and you know got to have the technical ability to do that, so it tells you something. But in terms of men's competitive football, doesn't tell you too much. he went on loan to Warsaw and he just did not get.
He
didn't really play at all, and we're like, well, why has he even gone on loan? He could have just sat on the bench here. Yeah. He actually was a really in the Leeds FA Cup. He came back to Leeds tonight, really bizarrely.
He was good in that.
He scored a penalty and he was really good. He looked class. You think, oh, the boy's going to get a chance now. Then he went on loan. You think, okay, it's good for his development. Then he doesn't play. You think, well, what a waste of time that is. And then he went to Bradford, and again it started. He wasn't playing. He was on the bench, and now he started getting to the team. He scored the other week, I noticed. I think off the bench, and now I don't know if he started Saturday, but everyone was like raving about him. You know, man of the match, and did really well. So I would have liked to seen him around. Malaka, I think, hasn't been given a fair crack of the whip. He needs more game time to really judge him, but it's a little bit that Hemed situation where the other ends of their career, one finishing and one kind of starting out, and I think he's a Slovenian, Malaka, and he's played for the first team under 21. So he's got pedigree. It was a bit of a coup, I think. I think it was the relationship with potentially David Weir and Mark Warburton that got Malaka to Brighton. But at the cost of Otte doing the same things that Malaka's doing in the Championship, you don't know. But at least he's playing now first team football at a decent level and scoring goals. So he's someone to potentially come back in next season when Hugo, Wells and Malaka potentially won't be at the club.
Absolutely.
But there's been lots of discussions about the young players in the last couple of seasons that have gone on loan, whether it's Manning, Smith, Otte, you know, whether it's the right thing for them to be doing, and Chair, obviously another big one. And if you look at it, it's actually worked. Eze and Chair went away on loan and now mainstays of the team. Manning went away, now he's a mainstay in the team. So in hindsight, you could look at those loans and say they worked. Other people could turn around and say they could have been in the team earlier.
Yeah.
You don't really know, but those three are now on the starting sheet and they went out on loan for a season or two each. And so maybe the same thing's going to happen with Otte here. Who knows?
Yeah, I think as well as, you know, Otte at Bradford, you've also got Nico Hammerleinen up in Scotland doing good things for Kilmarnock, and Ozzy Kakai in the league below. I see when Ozzy played in the first team, and his local lad has actually generally come from, as a 9-year-old, to QPR, because a lot of these boys that are in there have been kind of like let go by other clubs, including like Eze. So we've done really well at picking them up and shining them up into the diamonds that they've become. And you have to say a massive hats off to like the likes of Furlong and Paul Hall, but Chris Ramsey, who picked up his MBE today for his services to football and diversity within the game as well. And whatever he's doing down there, I know that he's very much around ball mastery and getting the players to be technically gifted. And he was at the Tottenham Academy, so they've had players come through, and he's doing a great job there teaching those boys about, you know, what it's like to be good on the ball. And now the players are at the standard where they can go to League 2, League 1, SPL, and be involved with first team, when we haven't had that for, well, I don't even remember QPR having players on. Dougie Freedman going to Barnet in League 2 is the last one I remember doing anything decent. But, you know, hats off to Chris Ramsey and what he's done in football, not only at Tottenham, but I know he had a bad time as first team manager, but some fellas, they ain't cut out for first team, they're cut out for the academy and doing that in the game. And he's someone that doesn't get a mention at QPR because of his time as first team, but he's obviously doing a good job.
At the time he came in, the expectation of the club was we should be in the playoffs and pushing back for promotion. So
we got the job on the Sunderland win when Leroy Fur turned into Ruud Gullit, and we had a good game. So yeah, you know, there's your why he got the job. But yeah, fair play to him for getting his MBE today, much deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. A man who is up, his deal's up at the end of the season. A man, I say, Ryan Manning. Newcastle apparently sniffing around,
and Southampton apparently. You would, you know, I think the money you've seen banded around, and you were happy taking $1.5 million for Furlong. I wasn't.
$2 million.
But, you know, there's talk of $5-6 million for him. And there's a guy that we did have on loan last year at Rotherham thinking, well, he's not made out for the first team. You probably would have to take that money if they came in. I would love...
Oh, yeah, all day long.
You would have to. I personally think he's very good going forward. I think his defensive duties, he's done a fantastic job.
He's not a left back though, is he?
But he's not a left back. And he gets caught out. So it depends what they want him for. But if they're asking for $5 million or offering $5 million, we'd absolutely take it. And he's now in the Ireland squad. There was rumours that Mick McCarthy was sort of being belligerent, keeping him out and saying, "I don't care. Really? I'll pick who I want." But now the press have pushed and pushed, and he's been called up. So
yeah, I think he had a bad game when McCarthy came to watch. But is he out of contract then? We must have an option.
His contract's up at the end of the season, I believe. Yeah,
so I think they're in talks with him, and has Chair signed a new one? They're in talks with two of them. I think Manning's one of them, but. Yeah, it hasn't gone unnoticed what he's done at left back, but as Julian said, he's not a left back. He's a midfielder, and he was brought in as a 10 from Galway as a kid. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where he goes. But he's done well. I think he is the answer, or one of the potential answers in DCM in centre mid to shore it up, because he likes to tackle. He's good on the ball. And he can play out from the back.
He scored a beautiful goal away at Hull, was it? Yeah, the first
Reading.
goal.
Was it Reading? Was it the pass last season at Reading as well? When he crossed it in for Mackie, or was that 2 seasons ago? So I'm testing Julian's 63-year-old brain now. Sorry, Jules.
He did a
Sorry,
great
mate.
cross at Villa when he crossed it, but he scored a goal away at Hull where he hit it with the outside of his foot, which was a great finish.
Gents, it has been nothing but a pleasure to share the last hour with you. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Middlesbrough, of course, will do predictions now. I have to say, since the turn of the millennium, 6 games at Loftus Road between the pair, 22 goals in those 6 games. That is incredible. And I have to say, prior to the millennium, the 97-98 season, I was at that game when you played Middlesbrough. 5-0 to QPR.
Paul Bruce even scored that day, so...
He did score that day. There's the knowledge.
Deflected goal.
Marco Branco up top for Borough. Remember him?
Dear.
Crikey.
But when they beat us 5-0, that was their very, very first win at Loftus Road. I remember year after year they used to turn up and won, and then eventually they win it. Smack 5-0.
Lovely. Score prediction, please.
I will go 2-0 to QPR.
Well, I've got the same. I've written it down before him.
I copied his answers, sir. Sorry, miss.
Come on, you arse. This is the QPR Fan Show on Love Sport. We'll see you next Tuesday at 9 p.m.
This is Love Sport.
Whoa!